results. I'm not saying that Willingham put them over the top, but they made the aggressive move, and the Cleveland Indians didn't. And now looking back, are kicking themselves just a little bit, especially when you look at what they've got going forward, the way the pitching staff solidified. And I don't know, I said this to you a couple of weeks ago that I can only really see about 4 guys that I want to see back again in the everyday lineup, and that's giving Chisenhall the benefit of the doubt and putting him in that group with Santana and Brantley and Gomes. So going forward, if we go into next season and we don't see Bourne or Kipnis or Aviles or any of these other 4A players that we've seen this year, it'll be okay with me. But I think they have some serious moves to make and adjustments to make in the off season. It'll be interesting to see how aggressively they go about that.
Most of those guys I agree with. I'm still in that camp that likes Mike Aviles, especially when you limit the doses of Mike Aviles. I think too much exposure and you start to see the bad sides of him. But I think that when he's able to fit that role, and he fit a lot of it last year, and he's able to fill in those gaps. There's times that I'm not necessarily ready to part ways with Mike Aviles. I know.
Yeah, and I would put Kipnis in that category too. I just think that we have to understand the Kipnis injury situation, and I'm not ready to necessarily give up on Kipnis. I'm just saying if they can make a move and unload a Bourne or a Kipnis or one of those guys and get some quality major league players in return, it wouldn't make me cry in my beer. I mean, I would. No. I'd be okay with that. We just also have to understand that maybe the ceiling that we all thought Jason Kipnis had may be a little bit lower than we originally thought, and now they also see that the club is rich with middle infielder prospects, and whether you consider Mike Aviles to be in that, not a prospect obviously, but in that group with the Lindors and the Ramirez's and throw Zach Walters in there because he plays those positions as well. That maybe Kipnis is trade bait, and maybe if you reevaluate what you think his ceiling might be, then maybe he is talked about in the off season for that reason.
Especially when you start moving him out of the infield, I agree that changes the premium on the offense, which you're not getting right now anyway. But Kipnis is the one that throws me for a loop because I can't go one way or the other. I'm not sure, and I mean, hey, there's experts that aren't sure either, but I am not sure if it's the fact that people over-evaluated what he's going to be, because there's people that I like, and I like their opinions, that's exactly what they think, and that he's just average at best, and that's what he is, and there's other people that think it's because of the injuries, and, I feel that way too. Part of me says, hey, man, I understand certain injuries affect certain things. I mean, but so I don't know. And do you make a move? Do you trade him and then he becomes what you thought he was, and you're like, wow, we really messed up on that one, Or do you keep him and he continues to hit 240 for the rest of his life, And so Kipnis is really an X factor there. And same with Chiz. I was talking earlier when Bruce called. I said, that's who I would really hope that somebody is willing to buy high on Lonnie. I know he kind of took the luster off in the second half, but his stock's probably as high as it's going to be. If you're not sure that he's your guy, try to find somebody to take him. Try to find somebody to buy that he's still reaching his upside, because I've been with him. And even in the first half, we're like, wow, we're really glad that we kept Chisenhall. But man, he cooled off so much in the second half that now I just wonder if he did not just have one of those really fluky runs and then goodbye.
Yeah, and as you look at, say Kipnis and Chisenhall at two different positions, at least if you move Kipnis, you've got second baseman that you can plug in. I don't see a major league ready third baseman
what do you do
ready
third?
to take
Exactly.
over for Chisenhall.
Exactly.
And so that would have to factor into your thinking, although there are people that would question whether Chisenhall is a major league third baseman after the glove work that we've seen
hey,
from him.
Santana's still been working
year.
at third. Don't forget. No, I'm just kidding. Don't forget. Santana's got that third baseman's glove somewhere, man. I mean,
I think Santana has finally found his home
Yes.
on the major league diamond, and it's over at first base.
You know what would fix a lot of this?
He really turned into a pretty decent first baseman, actually.
Yeah, well, he may have to move too, because if my plan plays out, then everybody needs to find new positions here, man. We need to rearrange everything. I sent out a tweet last night. I said, look, somebody tell Victor Martinez that whole coming home thing has worked out really, really well so far for LeBron James from a PR standpoint and everything. I'm just saying, LeBron's happy in life right now. Victor, if anybody's talking to Victor right now, just say, hey, man. You ever think about hometown discount, a small budget discount? Let's call it the small budget discount, And no, but
yeah, well, I think Victor obviously has to stay in the American League, and
he wants far too much money,
He's got a soft spot in his heart for Cleveland, so I'm all about bringing Victor in to be our DH full time and
Look
put Carlos
what he
at
does.
first base. That makes us a much better offensive team right now. So that in addition to 3 or 4 other moves that I hope they're making. But I guess I just had to get that off my chest about this front office, and I hope at least that they're kicking themselves and looking for some players in addition to looking for somebody else to be in charge of season ticket sales.
For sure. Oh, well, we've talked about that problem, too. And, here's the other thing. And I did my thing at the beginning of the show, talked about the good and the bad about this front office. I do think they rely too heavily. I'm not an advanced metrics kind of guy. I understand why people are, and there's sometimes that I look at those numbers and I go, well, that kind of makes sense. But you can call me old school or whatever. I watch a guy play. I see what a guy can do. I trust what I see with my own eyes more than what you tell me a guy does on average with 2 strikes against a 95-mile-an-hour fastball every Tuesday. I don't get into that. You know what I mean? But same thing with football.
Yeah.
John and I were talking about that with his problem with Pro Football Focus and how they measure everything in metrics. I'm like, man, at the end of the day, who can play ball and who can't? You can give me all them numbers all you want. So I do think we rely on that sometimes too much because of trying to keep the budget low. I mentioned how, obviously this team much better at acquiring talent in trades than they are at free agency because of the risks that come with free agency. I mean, they get burned a lot because there's only so much so far you can go with the budget. There's only so much you're going to spend, so you have to get those high-risk, high-reward guys. So when Scotty Kazmir comes in and has a great season, you go, wow, that was a great signing, and then when XYZ, you could just pick whichever one of these bums that's come in and not had a good season, and you go, wow, that's what happens when it goes the opposite way. Look at this season and all the things at the beginning, the guys that they counted on, that they have no choice but to count on again next year that didn't come through. I mean, while I complained about Jimenez being out there the other night and JB Shuck and how he shouldn't even be on this team, let alone out there in crunch time, the reason those guys are out there is because there's no Asdrubal, there's no Nick Swisher. We're not getting anything out of this guy and that guy, and so on and so forth. How many of the key guys let this team down this year? For us to even still be here this week talking about this is absolutely amazing. So while part of you can say, yeah, you should have bolstered at the trade deadline or you could have added something there, heading into the season, short of replacing Kipnis, Swisher, Bourne, all these guys that didn't come through, how were you to anticipate that none of those guys were going to contribute a drop in the bucket to your season?
Yeah, and I guess I might leave Michael Bourne aside in that conversation.
He's done
because
better.
Michael Bourne did do decently for the team, at least
Yes.
in stretches. It just goes to show you that it's not necessarily like people lamenting this year that we did not go harder after Kazmir after his great start. It's not so much the guys that you maybe could have gotten that you didn't get. It's the guys that you did get that you had to sign to long-term deals that now are going to be, albatrosses around your neck for the next 2 or 3 years. And obviously Swisher is the guy that comes immediately to mind, but also, you just re-signed Kipnis, and if he turns out to be, not what you thought he was, then he's virtually untradeable,
He's
as is a
Nick
Bourne,
Swisher.
because you're paying him so much money. So you've got these millstones hanging around your neck, and you might love to move these guys, but the rest of the major league GMs weren't born last night either.
I'll tell you, I see Bruce in the chat room, and that kind of makes you sick to your stomach. He put a comment in there: sign Victor 3 years, $15 million a year, and then you go, isn't that Nick Swisher money? boy, would I rather have Victor Martinez for that $15 million a year than Nick Swisher money. I'm just saying, but
and when you look back in retrospect at the excitement and the PR value of Nick Swisher, and you look at the Nick Swisher track record of 20-plus homers and 80 RBIs for 8-9 years in a row. It's not like you signed him on the hope that he'd be something else. You just wanted 20 homers and 80 RBIs out of the guy. And you just wanted him to continue what he did and also be that fan favorite. So there's all kinds of rationale for looking back and saying, okay, this was a smart signing by them. Obviously in retrospect it's not, because his career may be essentially over other than as a DH. And, this team has bunches of guys that could do that job for him for the next few years. Even if you look at, an Aguilar or some guys like that are, maybe on the verge of major league ready.
It's funny. You watch Aguilar. You watch Aguilar, and it's like you're watching Pedro Serrano, man. You give him a fastball, he can hit ball very far, very far. You give him a curveball, breaking ball in the dirt, no good. I know hit curveball so good.
Right.
You know what's funny, too? You mentioned those.
Swisher,
go ahead.
Swisher, you can understand why they did the Swisher move, but obviously hindsight being 2020, it's something that's gonna really hurt him for the next couple of years. Not only the money aspect, but just you don't anticipate the productivity you thought you were going to get.
Speaking of that, you want to make up for that, though, as we're talking about Victor Martinez. He would come home. Hell, this year, he doesn't even play for the Indians, and I think he hit 20 home runs and 80 RBIs in Progressive Field this year, and he doesn't even play.
Yeah, that's right.
I
think he's probably third or fourth on the Indians in homers and RBIs at Progressive Field. Yeah,
you're right though. If you were to look at the season numbers this year, he may be in the top 5 of the Indians in home runs hit at Progressive Field and RBIs.
I think he's probably number 5, right behind J.D. Martinez.
There you go. They killed us. They
both murdered the Indians this year.
I mean, lifetime. We know Victor Martinez. I believe he's the number 1 in Progressive Field with home runs when you add up what he did with the Indians and that now. But Bruce said in the chat room that those numbers were what he talked about looking to make in his next contract. I mean, I'm just saying, if we even considered giving Nick Swisher that kind of money, somebody needs to think about calling Victor Martinez. That's all I'm saying, man. Y'all find $15 million somewhere. Fix this lineup so that we can go out here. And because really, seriously, we joke, you can name a guy here and there, but we do see the potential of where this team is right on the precipice of being and what they can grow into if you add a battery plug, a jolt to the middle of that lineup. If you can move the pieces that you've got now around to make them fit around that better, balance your lineup a little bit, man, I mean, the sky really is the limit. Forget this talk about wait till next year, but the sky really is the limit for the next few seasons for this Indians team. The core is so young and talented.
That's very true. In fact, I looked up last night just to see the ages of these starters. I didn't realize that Kluber's only 27 years old, or the Brantley's only 27 years old. You're right. These guys, Kluber is a little bit older than that, I think. But you're right. The core is very young, and the pitching. I mean, the rest of the AL Central is already starting to worry about the Indians' pitching staff next season. You got to believe they're going to go out and add somebody. You don't know what you're going to get yet out of, some of the older guys that are still around, or McAllister comes to mind or whatever. And they're going to probably want to sign another starter because you need, 7, not 5 starters in this day and age. But boy, even if you throw House in that mix, and that fivesome is causing people around the league to sit up and take notice. And you're right. It's a matter right now of fixing that everyday lineup, improving your infield defense, and getting some punch in the middle of that lineup, and that's something that will be the off-season task for Antonetti, and boy, there's no excuse for not trying to capitalize and sell the farm, make it happen. If it costs your prospects, it costs your prospects. Let's go do it. let's spend Dolan's money. It's always easy to spend Dolan's money. You and I do that all the time on here on the phone.
More than he does, that's for sure. We definitely spend more of his money than he does. But all of that aside, that brings me to something I wanted to ask you. Bruce had hit me up earlier this morning. Then I see he also put a comment in the chat room here, though. But he had hit me up first thing this morning and said 3 local companies, and these are new offers. I said, hey, this isn't the stuff that's been out there.